Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we'll see the important terminologies related to PCB designing. These terminologies are: what are the units used in PCB designing, what is grid, and what are the different layers used in PCB designing. So units used while doing PCB designing are millimeters, mils, and inches. But out of these three units, very often used units are millimeters and mils. And the relation between millimeters and mil is 1 mil is equal to 0.0254 millimeters. Now grid. Grid is the distance between 2 points in a schematic sheet or in a layout sheet. Now let's see how we can make use of these units and how we can see grid in the PCB layout and schematic sheet and how we can change them according to our need. Now we are in the schematic sheet of Eagle. By default, the grids are hidden or they are invisible when we open the schematic sheet. To make them visible, here is the option called as grid. Click on this. This window will get open and you can see the display option in the grid is now off. To make it on, click here, say OK. So here now we can see the grid and distance between this point and this point is called as grid. By default, the grid is 2.54 millimeters. So these are the units which we can change. So if we expand this, here you can see we have mil, we have inches. So 2.54 is the default grid when we are doing schematic and we can change them. So now let's see how to change. Make it 5 and click on OK. So now the distance between this point and this point become 5 millimeters. But when we are doing schematic, it is recommended to go with default grid. We never change grid when we are doing schematic, but while doing a layout, we need to change grid according to our need. So let's see in a layout window how to play with grid. In layout window also, by default grids are invisible. So to make them visible, again go here. This is grid, click on this, turn it on and change units into millimeters. Click OK. So this is the default grid which is 5.08 millimeter. Now again to change it, click on grid and make them 10 millimeter. Okay, so this is how we can change the grid in Eagle, and from here you can change the units, but I like to work with millimeters, so I will go with millimeters. So I hope you have understood how to play with grid and how to change the unit. Now let's see what is layer in a PCB designing. While designing PCB, we have to work with different layers. These layers are divided into different types. Some of them are routing layer, documentation layer, and the mechanical layer. Now routing layer means the layer where we actually draw the copper track or a copper trace. Now copper track can be drawn on the top layer, on the bottom side of PCB, or this can be also inside the PCB. That's why these routing layers are divided into top layer, bottom layer, and inner layers. Second type of layer is documentation layer. These are mainly useful for documentation of PCB. So one of the layer in documentation is assembly layer. This layer is needed by the assembly house to assemble the PCB. Second layer is the silkscreen layer. Silkscreen layer is the layer which consists of information about the component. It means the outline of component, name of the component, and the value of component. So in Eagle, this layer is further divided into three layers: T-place, T-name, and T-values. T-place holds the outline of component, T-names hold the name of component, and T-values hold the value of component. And third layer is the mechanical layer, and one of the layer which comes under mechanical layer is the board outline. Now let's see in Eagle how these layers are. And these layers are mainly required when we are working with layout in Eagle. Now we are in the layout window of Eagle, and with the help of these two resistors I will try to explain about different layers. First, this is the outline of the board which which comes under mechanical layer, and these are the two footprints of register. Now this footprint consists of the body of register, name of register, and the value of register. So in Eagle, this body outline of register is classified under T place layer. The name of register is classified under T names, and the value is classified under T values. Now let's see about routing layers. So routing layers are the ones where we draw the copper track. Now to draw copper track, click here. Now the selected layer is a top layer and the color of it is red. And if I try to join these 2 points with the help of copper track, you'll see the track is in red color. It means it is in a top layer. Now let's switch the layer to bottom and join these 2 points in a bottom layer. Now in actual PCB, when you see the PCB, these 2 points are joined with this copper track and they are visible from top layer, and these 2 points of register are joined from the bottom layer and they are visible from bottom layer. And there are also different layers in layout, so you can see them from this layer setting window. But in PCB designing, we don't need all of these layers. We have to work with only specific layers, and we'll explore about layers more when we are actually working with our project. So that's it for this lecture. I hope you have understood about layers, and I will see you in the next lecture. Thank you.